First oral question, Baroness Whittaker, on behalf of Baroness Warwick of Undercliff.
On behalf of my noble friend Lady Warwick of Undercliff, and at her request, I beg leave to ask the questions standing in her name on the order paper.
My Lords, our vision is that no female offender who is subject to probation supervision will be released from prison homeless. Building on the success of our COVID emergency scheme, last July we introduced a transitional accommodation service for prison leavers in 5 regions, and we are expanding it further. We hold the system to account through ambitious accommodation targets set out in the target operating model we introduced last year.
Well and good, my Lords, and I'm grateful to the Minister. And while it's good to know that some progress has been made, there are still problems. The accommodation service is in place in only 5 of the 11 probation regions of England and Wales, and there has been no commitment to timelines or to safe and secure housing specifically for women. 77% of women left one prison without any safe and secure housing. One was provided with a tent, and the service provides temporary housing for only 12 weeks. Can the Minister give some commitment on timing for rollout and on what the Government will do for vulnerable prison leavers after 12 weeks, and indicate how support will reflect the particular needs of women?
Well, my Lords, there's quite a lot in that question. I acknowledge it's a very important topic. To pick up a couple of the points, as to the 70% figure, that comes from the recent IMB report for HMP Bronzefield. And that's referring to safe and secure accommodation. That's a different approach to what we use, which is whether people are actually homeless, i.e. have they got somewhere, have they got a roof over their heads for that night. We are very aware of the particular needs of women prisoners. Our accommodation programme is targeted at all prisoners, but we have got particular people working in women's prisons to make sure that women's needs are specifically met.
My Lords, as my noble friend has just illustrated, there are wide discrepancies in the way in which homelessness is measured amongst women leaving prison, as between the prison service and the Independent Monitoring Board at Bronzefield. And I'm grateful for the fact the Government recognises that something needs to be done about this to give confidence in the figures. But can my noble friend say when we can expect a set of robust categories to be in place that everyone can agree on?
Well, my Lords, I think robust categories are in place. We define homelessness in accordance with the legal definition as being where the individual does not have any accommodation available and reasonable for them to occupy, including where they may be rough sleeping, squatting, or in a night shelter, emergency hostel or campsite. It is very important to make sure that we're all looking at the same data. We publish the data annually, and I would invite all noble lords to have a look at those figures.
Disparity between government figures and those of the Independent Monitoring Board is due to the fact that we don't have one standard measure of what acceptable accommodation for prison leavers looks like. But it's not a sofa and it's not a tent. Will the noble Lord the Minister commit to facilitating the production of one? What we don't measure, we can't manage, my Lords.
Well, my Lords, on that point, I absolutely agree. I think I've said from this dispatch box in a number of areas that data is absolutely critical. We need to make sure that we're looking at the same thing. I did set out the legal definition, but we do publish statistics on this. I'm pleased to say that there has been an improvement in the figures recently. The percentage of prison leavers recorded as either homeless or rough sleeping has fallen from 16% to 12%. We want to make that even better.
My Lords, Friday releases from prison in particular are hugely problematic, particularly from geographically dispersed women's prisons, because women can't travel home in time to make a housing application with their local authority before the office closes. Is the Government aware of this particular problem, and can they offer any solutions as to what can be done to overcome it?
My Lords, I am more than aware of this problem because I think we debated it at committee stage and at report stage in legislation which was going through this House. It is a real issue. And it's a particular issue for prisons which are in more disparate parts of the country where it can be longer for people to travel back to where they originally came from. Prison governors are aware of this. The figures, I don't have them to hand, but are actually getting better in this regard. But perhaps I can write to the Right Reverend Prelate on this point further.
My Lords.
Order.
My Lords, we have a virtual contribution from Lord Howarth of Newport.
My Lords, I wanted to ask my question on the next question.
Very clear that many women end up in circumstances where perpetrators of abuse exploit and take advantage of them if they are not in safe and secure housing. And one of the recent studies has shown that overwhelmingly the number of those women in prison have previously been subjected to abuse and therefore suffer trauma. Isn't the priority, therefore, to ensure that there is more trauma-informed work available to work with women so that they don't enter the criminal justice system?
Lords, the Noble Lady is absolutely right. But I can say that we have seen a significant reduction in the number of women prisoners in the past 3 to 4 years. There will always be some women in prison, but the figures have gone down significantly. In addition, as we're talking about housing, 4 of the housing specialists that we've put into prisons are specifically in women's prisons, so they're acutely aware of the particular needs of women prisoners. They're in Stile, Bronzefield, Peterborough and Newhall.
My Lords, we sadly, thank you. My Lords, we sadly know that a large number of women in prison were victims of domestic abuse before they started their sentence. This makes leaving to live in safe and secure housing vitally important. But equally important is the psychological support. Could I ask the Minister what the Government is doing to ensure that specialist mental health support and mentoring is available for all women leaving prison for as long as they need it?
My Lords, this is obviously a very important issue. What we have done is to try to join up the dots between the prison service and the NHS. The problem in the past was that women left prison and the NHS didn't know about them. The prison service had, so to speak, passed them on to nobody. And the GP is the best way to access particularly mental health support in the community. And therefore we're working within the prison service to make sure that the links between the prison service and the NHS are stronger and better.
My Lords, the Minister in the answer to my noble friend's question said his vision was that no women prisoners should be homeless. And we've seen from the questions of noble lords and, if I might say, some Baroness Sater, my former colleague, about the breadth of the problems that women prisoners face when they come out of prison. Can the noble lord, the Minister, say something about how he will monitor the impact of the government's policy to see that this integrated support, which is the only way to prevent reoffending, is actually working?
My Lord's integrated support is absolutely key. I agree with the noble lord on that. What we have done is a number of things. We've set up a scheme to offer 12 weeks accommodation to prison leavers with support to move to settled housing. By 2024-25, we are investing £200 million per year to transform our approach to rehabilitation. But of course we need to be held to account on this. We hold the prison service to account on this. We publish data. The data is meant to be clear and transparent. There has been an improvement in the figures. I want to see them improve even more.
I declare an interest as head of the Sikh chaplaincy, prison chaplaincy service. Prison chaplains play an important and can play an important role in rehabilitation. Does the noble lord the Minister agree that smaller faiths should have the same access in education, pastoral care, etc., to prisoners as the larger faiths?
My Lords, I think I disagree with the Noble Lord only on one point, where he said that prison chaplains can play an important role for prisoners, including in rehabilitation. I think that underestimates the point. I would say that prison chaplains can play a crucial role, a fundamental role in prison life, both in and outside prison. As to smaller faiths, well, maybe I should declare my interest, but I agree.